Hey there, I'm Urban Banshee. In the spirit of October, I thought I'd discuss a scary story. Well, at least something that tries. In the 90s, Goosebumps were everywhere. Several times a year a new book would come out, and then there was the TV show. But of course, when anything gets super popular, others jump on the bandwagon. So instead of picking a Goosebumps book, I went with one from one of the knockoff series. Bone Chillers is similar to Goosebumps on the surface. Horror featuring kids, written for kids. Apparently, it even got its own TV show. I never heard of this series until I found today's book at a thrift store. To be fair though, as much as I love the Halloween aesthetic, I'm a bit of a baby when it comes to scary stuff. So I don't know how well known this series was back in its glory days. That said, my impression of Little Pet Shop of Horror, even after reading it, was a knockoff that doesn't understand why the originals worked. Even as R.L. Stine pumped out a ton of books, he had a few guidelines. He said in an interview, "I have some rules. No one ever dies in a Goosebumps book. If there happen to be ghosts and they are dead, it happened before the book starts. And I don't do any real serious problems. Kids have to know this is a creepy fantasy and it couldn't really happen." Spoilers up ahead, of course. The main character is a girl named Cassie, who's bike riding with her best friend Suki on a hot summer day. Right away, they notice a new pet shop, which is spooky because they could have sworn a couple days ago it was an empty parking lot. And the building doesn't even look new. It has vines already halfway up the side. Standard spooky story stuff. The atmosphere is lacking, but I get what the story's going for. Cassie is immediately determined to go inside the new pet shop and look at the cute animals. This is hint one that Cassie has no self-preservation. The book makes no alludes to the store calling her or anything supernatural. She just sees a spooky building and goes, "I think the plot is in there." Suki wants to go to her air-conditioned house and practice her gymnastics. This prompts Cassie to think about how she doesn't like her huge feet and that she isn't small and cute like Suki. The body issues aren't part of the plot or any moral. It's just there because girls have body issues, and isn't that fun? In the end, Suki caves and says they can go inside for a minute. A bulletin board on the front says "Custom Pets." Tell us exactly what type pet you're looking for and we'll find it for you. Satisfaction guaranteed. Which sets off alarms in my head, but they go inside anyway. Obviously, they literally mean customly created pets. I did see the cover, but as an adult that gives bad vibes. First, please adopt, don't shop. Puppy mills are no joke. But since this is from the 90s, I'll let that slide. Information is just easier to get now. But don't tell me that custom pets doesn't sound suspicious. Excluding the supernatural, my mind goes to the idea he might be stealing other people's pets or just dealing with illegal animal trafficking. The inside is creepy. The walls are lined with cages with only a handful of animals. All the rest are empty and a single light bulb hangs in the middle of the room. The place screams serial killer lair. Instantly the animals start acting odd, obviously upset but not in a normal way. Cassie starts sneezing. Apparently she is allergic to cats and dogs. Enter the super obvious bad guy, Mr. Willard. He is sitting behind the counter and is apparently a gross fat man that gives Cassie the creeps. The man is a red flag personified. In fact, the way he is described, he doesn't even appear fully human. Cassie wants to stay despite being repulsed by him, but Suki is done with the place. Not because the place is scuzzy as hell, but because she is bored. Cassie is finally pried away and they start off towards Suki's house again. But Cassie is once again distracted. This time, a bunch of boys are gathered around a boy named David, who has a box with air holes. All the boys take turns looking in the box and freaking out. Unable to stand not knowing what they are looking at, Cassie goes over to see. It's a huge tarantula that David just recently got from the new pet shop. Cassie freaks out and David torments her by shoving the box in her face. At some point, the spider even lands on her, but she is never hurt. Cassie mentions how odd it was that the pet shop didn't have a good selection. The boys laugh at her and tell her, "You have to pre-order the pets at the shop. You don't go in and buy what is there." At Suki's place, Cassie talks about how she wants a dog, but is sad she's allergic. Suki does backflips and tells her that she saw on TV that there are dogs no one is allergic to. Cassie thinks about Mr. Willard and how he gave her the creeps, but then berates herself for thinking that. She tells herself he's probably really nice. At this thought, she ditches Suki to go back to the pet store. Normally in this kind of story, the kids are the ones that know to avoid the new pet shop. Since kids aren't jaded like adults, they can see things for what they really are. Kids would say Mr. Willard creeps them out, but the adults would tell them to not be rude and judge people based on appearance. That is part of the horror, knowing something isn't right but being a kid and having no power. But the plot is waiting, so Cassie goes to the creepy pet shop again and asks Mr. Willard if there are dogs that won't make her sneeze. He tells her that there are, and if her parents fill out an order form, he can get her one. He steeples his fingers as he talks to her. Still creeped out by him, she also notices he hasn't blinked once the entire time. This book really harps on how grotesque and horrifying Mr. Willard is, to the point I'm wondering why anyone interacts with him. A big dog suddenly comes out of the back room, first all scary, and then acting strange. Mr. Willard roughly handles the dog, obviously being cruel, and shoves it in the back room. Cassie leaves and heads home. Cassie asks her parents for a dog. They tell her no, they're afraid for her health, not quite believing her that there are dogs that are okay for her allergies. They think the pet shop owner might have lied to make a sale. Cassie hops on her bike and goes back to the pet shop. I get that kids can have obsessions and make dumb decisions, but this is literally the third time in a single day Cassie has gone to the pet shop. It really feels like the author kept having to push Cassie to go back to the pet shop because that's where the plot was. When she gets to the shop, Mr. Willard tells her he doesn't have a dog for her since she didn't place an order yet. She had been hoping he accidentally ordered a dog and she could just take it home. Not the brightest bulb. A cat starts wailing from the back room, so Cassie tries to sneak into the back room, with Mr. Willard right there. So obviously he notices and grabs her to stop her. She tries the old, I thought that was the bathroom trick. I don't know if he believed her, but he shows her where the bathroom really is. In the bathroom, she once again thinks to herself that the pet shop is really creepy. Too little, too late. While in the bathroom, David, the boy with the spider, comes in with his parents. Turns out he sat on his spider and killed it, so he needs a new pet. Cassie thinks David killing his spider is hilarious and struggles to not giggle. She doesn't want him to know she is there and heard him. Because plot. Look, I know she doesn't know yet, but the twist is that the pets are really people. This book gets way too dark without actually being scary. The book never acknowledges that the spider was most likely a human kid. There's no moment of horror where Cassie realizes she was laughing over a kid's death. It just leads to a weird tonal issue the entire book has. David's parents order a dog and then leave. Cassie waits until she is sure they have driven away before she comes out of the bathroom. Because being alone with a creepy adult is better than bumping into a kid you don't like. As Cassie tries to leave, she starts to feel weird. The book describes it as hot, stuffy, and a buzzing in her head. So she turns to Mr. Willard, who has a smile on his face, and says, "What is happening to me?" In response, he gives her a glass of pink liquid and tells her to drink it. Of course, Cassie drinks the entire glass without any hesitation, then passes out. Didn't your parents teach you stranger danger, Cassie? It's the 90s in this book. Don't take candy from a stranger was practically a mantra parents drilled into their kids. She literally takes a drink from a creepy adult she doesn't know. I have to stop and say how awkward the dialogue is in this book, too. The entire scene feels backwards. Cassie should drink the weird liquid and start feeling weird and then make a comment about it. A more realistic and better flowing dialogue would have had her say something like, "I feel weird," or "I don't feel very good." Nothing really feels connected. Technically, there is nothing wrong with the sentences by themselves, but when you connect them, they feel awkward. Oh, and almost every single chapter ends on a faux cliffhanger. The kind of cliffhanger I saw on TV shows before commercial breaks. I get you want the kids reading this to continue reading, and the end of a chapter is usually a spot you stop at. But they are kind of misleading. One cliffhanger has the tarantula lunging at Cassie, only to have that not be true in the next chapter. Back to the plot, Cassie wakes up in a cage, with Mr. Willard putting a collar on her and telling her to be a good girl. WTF book. Cassie realizes she is a dog when she tries to speak and is able to only bark, which I guess makes it less weird. Turns out she's going to be David's new dog. David and his parents pick her up and her dog name is Cassidy, which is her real name. Odd since every other pet Mr. Willard gets has a new pet name. Cassie spends the entire car ride pacing and trying to tell David and his parents that she isn't a dog, but a real person. But every time she tries to talk, only barking comes out. So she spends the entire car ride barking her head off wondering why no one understands her. David tries to get Cassie to play fetch and calm down, but the bowl tastes gross to her, especially when dirt gets on it. Which leads me to another big problem I had with this story. Cassie is not a dog. She is a human shaped like a dog. She doesn't have any of the traits of a dog, no good hearing or sense of smell. In stories like Animorphs, the kids have to be extra careful when they turn into animals because they get animal brains too. A kid turns into a dog and they get happy and excited super easily. They still retain some of their higher functions, but they are influenced by some animal instincts. Nearly every person who turns into an animal story has some of this. If they are a dog, they want to chase a cat. If they are a frog, they end up trying to eat a fly. That sort of thing. Not this story, which rubbed me the wrong way. Because, for example, let's talk food. Humans and dogs do have some food overlap, but there are things that we can eat, like chocolate or onions, that will kill a dog. Also, there are nutrients in dog food that dogs need, and if we ate a ton of dog food, we would get sick. When they get to the house, they show Cassie her food and water dish. It is dog food in it, and it doesn't look very appealing. Normally, that would be the human side, but when the person actually eats it, it should at least be doable. Maybe not as tasty as human pizza, but look, pets do enjoy their pet food. When in a few days Cassie caves and eats the dog food, it tastes nasty to her. Like a human actually eating dog food. At this point in the story though, Cassie starts barking because she is human. How dare they try to make her eat off the floor? David clamps her mouth shut, telling her to stop barking or they both will get in trouble. Upset, Cassie goes to the couch and tries to pretend to sleep. Apparently, this is a no animals on the furniture house. She gets scolded and told she's a bad dog. Her response? Wailing and barking some more. David's dad makes a move like he's going to beat the dog, but David protects her and suggests she maybe needs a walk. Yeah, I don't like David's parents, his dad especially. Dude is way too eager to beat their new dog. Outside, Cassie runs into the same dog she saw at the pet shop earlier. The dog looks at Cassie like he understands her and might be human too, but the owner takes the dog away. David throws a ball and tries to get Cassie to fetch it, but she isn't a dog, so she refuses. David is about to kick Cassie because he is so upset when Suki passes by and yells at him. Excited to see Suki, Cassie runs over to greet her, and Suki flips out like Cassie is a rabid dog coming for her. Depressed, Cassie just exists for about 3 days at David's place, begging him for food scraps because dog food is gross and she refuses to eat it. Unfortunately, David is caught feeding her and she is banned from the kitchen. She finally caves and eats the dog food, which apparently tastes like cardboard. Again, David's parents suck. Their new dog hasn't eaten anything for 3 days and they literally don't notice. In fact, David's dad is mad at the dog for sitting inside an air-conditioned house. Back in his day, dogs were man's best friend and lived in the barn and hunted. So basically, they were either useful to you or died. Fun. He gets this bright idea to take David and Cassie out duck hunting. You have to train a dog to be a hunting dog. In fact, funny thing about any activity, it takes knowledge and learning first. Literally everything from learning to read to shooting a gun. Cassie refuses to grab any of the ducks he shoots, and David stops shooting too. David even asks if they can go home, but the dad says no, they came there to have fun. The guy though just gets madder and madder with each duck he shoots, and Cassie doesn't fetch. She is forced to sleep in the basement that night. The next day, the news reports that a girl named Cassie is missing. Cassie barks at them and the TV, trying to tell them that she is the missing girl. Of course they don't understand her barking. So she gets the idea to get their attention. While David is at a friend's house, she destroys important and valuable things in his room, like his prized basketball shoes and his model airplanes. The book doesn't explain how she even thought this was a good idea. It just says she was trying to get their attention and then is super surprised when she gets in trouble. Look, I get being a dog in that situation would suck. But Cassie constantly forgets she can't talk and doesn't ever act like she understands what is going on. Don't get me wrong, the parents are terrible pet owners, but she is making a bad situation worse at every turn. David's parents put a choke collar on her and sent her to obedience school with David. At the class, she spies the same dog again and tries to communicate with him, barking, which angers the teacher who comes over and basically straight up hurts her. He holds her down while yanking up on the choke collar. She can't breathe, is in pain, and is starting to pass out, so she panics and bites the teacher, which gets her expelled. The dad says he is going to send Cassie back to the pet store. David begs him not to, and Cassie is sent outside for a while. She finally gets the idea to try and communicate with something other than barks, so she digs in the mud trying to write. Again, the book isn't very good at describing things, but I think she literally dug in the grass until it was mud and dug the words help, not dog, girl. Not the best canvas. She barks to get their attention, and of course they don't see the words, just that she has made a huge mess. They decide to let her sleep outside and she will go back to the pet shop in the morning. So Cassie just stays outside all night. When she wakes up, she decides she doesn't want to go back to the scary pet shop and tries to escape by digging in the flowers to make a hole under the fence. She knew they were taking her to the pet shop. She had all night, but she decided to sleep and then at the last minute try to escape. Yeah, she doesn't make the hole big enough in that short of a time span. She is taken to the pet shop. When he gets her in the back room alone, Mr. Willard mocks her, telling her she blew it and now he is going to put her to sleep, aka murder her. She fights back and is able to knock the syringe out of his hand and she hides it. But oh no, that wasn't his only syringe. He gets another and fills it with poison and chases her some more. At this point though, he's winded and tells her he will be back with help. He goes out the door and locks it. She notices a window up high and tries to jump on the table and reach it. The table breaks and all the papers on it and a fancy glass bottle fall. The bottle breaks and the liquid in it is all over the floor. Cassie is thirsty now and drinks it all, then starts to feel weird. Her thoughts before she passes out again is remembering what the glass of pink liquid Mr. Willard gave her tasted like. She wakes up and is human again. She realizes that the liquid she just drank must be what she drank last time. Oh, and she is currently naked. But it's okay. She finds her clothes in one of the cupboards in the room. She makes it out the window and as she runs away promises herself she will never set foot in that pet store again. Wow, what a great lesson that you only just now learned. She makes it home and tells her parents she has amnesia, to which they basically just go, okay, and let it go. No follow-up with police or anything. Look, you don't have to tell them about being turned into a dog, but Mr. Willard did kidnap you, stick you in a cage, and try to kill you. Cassie tries to call Suki, but it seems she isn't home. Her parents later come into her room to give her a surprise. They got her a dog. They literally just got back from the pet store. Yeah, they left their daughter who was missing for a week alone in their home within hours of her showing back up. The dog is a Pekingese that runs around the room. Cassie laughs and tells the dog she reminds her of her friend Suki. The dog then makes eye contact with Cassie and does a backflip. The end. Yup, the dog is Suki. I'll be honest, I got legitimately mad and frustrated at this book multiple times. Cassie is beyond stupid and only turns human again in the end by sheer luck. Yes, being turned into a dog like that would suck, but you're a human. Act a little bit smarter. Do tricks a dog normally couldn't do. Convince David you aren't normal. Damn, I mean Sugi got the memo. It's nothing new for adults to be dumb in kids fiction. It's practically a requirement. But there's a level where it's not empowering to kids and just frustrating. Your daughter goes missing and she went to the same place several times before disappearing and you don't even suspect that it had anything to do with it. In fact, they buy a dog from the place. The best part of the entire book is the scene at the end with dog Suki. Oh, and the back of the book is wrong. It says Cassie loves puppies. She'll do anything to play with them. She'll hang out in a spooky old pet shop. She'll talk to the shop's weird owner, Mr. Willard. She'll even spend the night there, all alone. But Cassie doesn't know that Mr. Willard has a surprise for her. She can play with the puppies for as long as she wants. She can stay in the pet shop forever. Cassie likes the idea of dogs, but is allergic so she doesn't get to play with them. Mr. Willard isn't weird, he is gross and creepy, barely human. And Cassie doesn't spend the night at the pet shop, not once in the entire book. Oh, and Mr. Willard never tries to keep Cassie at the pet shop. He sells her as soon as she turns into a dog, and then tries to murder her when she is sent back. So I'd label the summary on the back as bad as clickbait. In the end, I didn't enjoy this at all. It feels like it strays a little too close to real-life horror to be comfortable. Abusive parents, a creepy guy who drugs kids, and animal abuse. As well as a main character that I never rooted for. This being for kids is no excuse. One of my favorite horror stories is one for kids. Hell, it's a picture book. That's all for today. I think I'll go read something fun.